Cool.
All right, man. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Shop and Chivalry Podcast. I'm here with the great and powerful Shea Dobson. Welcome back, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is your second time on the show. First time with video. Last time was in my garage.
That's right. Yeah. I was trying to think, I was trying to remember. I've been on many podcasts, so I couldn't remember if this was my first or second or second or third time.
Yeah.
If I'd been only on one or two, but you got a great setup, and I'm glad to see how you're progressing. And
yeah, it's been fun, man. It's been fun. So Shea, obviously, we won't dive too much into what people can check out on another episode. Obviously, prior we talked about you being the mayor, and that has that's come to an end, right? A new mayor has been elected. Yep. So what's it like being former mayor of Ocean Springs?
Yeah, well, it's I still try to keep in touch with folks from City Hall and different aldermen and the mayor and try to stay as informed as much as possible about what's going on. I'm dealing with state politics and state issues right now, so just trying to kind of have one foot in each, but at the same time, let the new administration and the new guys really own, what it is they're trying to do. And Kenny, I'm happy. I think he's been doing a good job so far. We'll stay in touch here and there, and he'll let me know if he can't find some pens or something around. I'll let him know where the pens are in the office. But no, it's I try to stay in touch with most of those guys and stay out the way enough, but then be there if they need me, if they have any questions or want to pick my brain on something.
Yeah. Is Kenny a Titans fan?
No, not.
It must have hurt to kind of. Oh, really?
Yeah,
I'm sure it hurt to take all the memorabilia off the wall as well.
Yeah, Bobby Cox enjoyed it. So, the Titans and the Saints actually play this coming season, week 10, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good season for Tennessee. It's a great time to be a Titans fan.
It is. If we can just get our defense looking average.
Small holes, but
yeah. Well, we were 32nd last year, so we gotta. If 31st, and we'll be an improvement.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Well, because of the whole, high pass offense that's kind of run through the NFL recently, defensive backs are in short supply because defensive backs typically have like a shelf life of a running back. Like they're not in the league very long. Yeah. So they're really in short supply. I mean, that's really what did the Chiefs in, so. Yeah.
What I like about how the Titans are built right now is Derrick Henry is such an anomaly. Most running backs are more they're usually shorter. Derrick Henry gets better towards the end of the season and at the end of games. And so defenses, like the trend has been on offense to get faster, get smaller. And so defensive has kind of responded. And then you put this bull like Derrick Henry and he just runs through them.
Yeah, and defensive backs and running backs are typically similar stature. So, a stiff arm from Derrick Henry on a guy that's 6'1".
Josh Norman.
Yeah, that's the one. So
that's my favorite.
Yeah. Well, he went sideways in the picture, and I made a comment. It's like Derrick Henry hit him so hard that he turned him into a photographer because it looked like he was leaning back doing one
like
of those.
The Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Oh goodness,
yeah,
but
I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good season. But so the former council. I mean, there's I think Jennifer Burgess and Kevin Wade are the new members, right?
Yeah.
So outside of those two, there's some experience that they can bring over to the new administration. But surely, especially with COVID having a higher kick-up rate, Kenny must be reaching out saying, hey, what was your thought process here? Which it must be a benefit to have you still in the city and willing to kind of, help out where needed.
Yeah. I talked to him, I think it was last week, and we kind of, discussed a little bit about what's going on. What I'm glad to hear is, from what I understand, whenever COVID just started in 2020, all the mayors on the Gulf Coast, and Billy Hughes, to his credit, Mayor Billy Hughes of Gulfport, he organized it, and it was just it was actually twice a week. We would all do a Zoom call and kind of give each other updates and share best practices and stuff. From what I understand, they've actually started that again, and
that's good.
I'm glad to see that, but he's working with Lee Bond, the CEO of Singing River, and Lee's amazing, and I know Lee's going to steer him in the right direction. So, I'm confident we're in good hands. But yeah, we kind of discuss more about just kind of experiences and kind of, how to handle it internally and such. Yeah,
it's interesting because this was something where there's nobody we could reach back to in our lifetime that said, hey, how did you guys handle the last pandemic? So in some sense, when the numbers started dying down, they can actually reach back to some people who went through this in a similar fashion. And that experience is hugely valuable because outside of this time last year, there's nothing until 1918. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. We have so much, even though there's so much we don't know, there is some stuff that we do know, now that as opposed to a year ago. So, last year was more, just reacting, but this year, obviously we got the vaccine and, there's obviously debate on that, but at least it's available and people can make a choice and it's there for those who want it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had COVID.
I did. Yeah. Last year. Well, it wasn't bad for me. Of course, I didn't have the Delta strain, so back when I had it, so I can't really speak to that. But I had it. In fact, I was looking back, and I think it was in like August, so it was right at a year ago now.
Yeah.
I mean, I had very mild symptoms. It wasn't too bad for me, but now that I got the antibodies, I feel like I can fight off any other variants. At least make it to where it's not as bad.
Yeah. What do you make of the numbers coming out of Ochsner and Singing River that shows that you'll have anything from like a 90% plus people that are actually in the hospital are unvaccinated?
Unvaccinated. Yeah.
Is that enough of a case to be made for you should probably go get vaccinated, or what are your thoughts on that?
It's a good. It's definitely a good argument for sure. Yeah. I think everybody needs to assess their risk and talk with their medical provider. I watched a good, it's been, the whole thing's been so politicized. You don't know which source to trust.
Unnecessarily politicized,
But I do trust the organization TED. Okay. And so they actually put out a video. I subscribed to their YouTube channel, and they put out a video, like a 5-minute video the other day, and it kind of explained how this new vaccine technology is different from the old. And I'm not even going to try to explain the science because I don't know, but it sounded really good and it sounded very promising. So, I think that there's a lot of, I think with that vaccine, it's a lot easier to get it to where you need to be in a shorter amount of time. Mm-hmm. And I think that rightfully so makes people uneasy because it's new and
it's novel. Yeah.
And so, we're dealing with something, like you said, that just is unprecedented, but I've always been a big, I've always been a fan of vaccines. I got my flu shot. It was funny. I was actually talking to a friend the other day, and when I first got in office, like within a year of me being in office, they talked about getting the flu shot, and I think it was, I can't remember which organization. I don't want to speak out of turn, but they were holding a clinic for all of this. It might have been Singing River Health System, actually.
Okay.
And they were just talking about the need to promote the flu shot and all this stuff. And so I would get on like social media, like took a picture getting my flu shot and stuff like this. And and so I've always been pro-vaccine. I'm kind of like, well, where are y'all at? Like a lot of these folks, like the flu has been around and we've had the vaccine for that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's just it's kind of frustrating because I think the vaccine is very much needed, and people a lot of people do need to take the vaccine, based on their health risk or a variety of issues. But my thing is that, and I'm not perfect. I'm not going to say I'm nowhere near perfect, but Mississippi is known for not being the healthiest state in the world.
Sure.
And just American society in general, I mean, we have a lot of work to do. And so, we can debate whether vaccines are good or bad. That is up for debate because, look, the vaccine's not FDA approved, from my knowledge. I mean, unless there's been breaking news.
Not yet.
And so, but I don't think anybody should refute or at least say they don't agree with or whatever is, we need to get healthier. We need to eat better, stuff like that. So I think that as far as COVID and people needing to, wanting to watch what, their health and a lot of that stuff, it's like, wherever you are in the vaccine, at least try to use this as an opportunity to have better habits, form better habits, eat better, go exercise. I'm not saying you have to go every single morning and be a gym rat, but, ride your bike, go for a swim, park at the end of the parking lot and walk to the
small stuff. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Just stuff like that.
How about put your cart back?
Yeah. Oh, that's a pet peeve of mine. Yeah.
Who to know? Now, there's probably a case to be made that it's better for your health if you put the cart back.
Yeah, I like that. You put the cart back and exercise your heart a little bit. Yeah. But
I do think that's a problem with, say, the mindset, whether it be political or just the ideology of, say, freedom. And it's that, in America, we're free. We're free individuals. Are free to, choose and do the things that we wish to do. We are the masters of ourselves. The individual is the fundamental building block of this country, right? Mm-hmm. Individual sovereignty. And yet people stop there. But I think in order to have that comes also incumbent upon that is the personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And so if you want, for example, I'll use New York because they like to protect people from themselves. So they outlawed the 44-ounce drink. Right?
Oh, yeah.
But that's a rule that's designed to protect people from themselves. Now, if people were a little more conscious about what they put in their bodies and their health and diabetes and how that's going to create long-term problems for their kids as well, it's going to create generational problems. People should take the personal responsibility to not do that. But it's as if, no, I'm free. I'm an individual. You can't tell me what to do. Great, fine. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a personal responsibility you have. And I would go so farther. I kind of was talking about this last year when the mask mandates came out.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I mean, it seems like they're doing that because people are refusing to participate in a collective, we'll say, experiment to lower the rate of transmission of COVID. Mm-hmm. And so people are saying, well, no, you can't do that because we're free and this and that, and it infringes upon our rights. I don't personally, subscribe to that. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's part and parcel to the same thing. And it's that, you want freedom, but you don't want the responsibility that comes along with it.
Right. No, I mean, you have a lot of good points. And I think, so I remember when I first got into politics, I would always say, well, I'm socially liberal and fiscally conservative.
Sure.
Now I say I'm just socially moderate, because there's been some things that the liberals have gone. I'm like, well, I can't agree with that. But anyway, I say that to say that I give my conservative friends a little bit more credit these days, because I've come to realize is that, we need as much freedom as possible. But I think what comes with freedom is, morals and convictions and, and institutions, social institutions that encourage people to, be virtuous and act in a gentlemanly way and this type of thing, a polite society, this type of stuff. I think what also goes along with that is that, the more you have government and institutions kind of blurring the lines, the way I've described it is blurring the lines of whether it be the government taking care of insurance, mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about getting insurance and planning for your future, because if something happens, the government's going to have it. The government's going to take it. And so I think a lot of times in American society, we haven't had to think in those terms. We haven't had to think in personal responsibility because, daddy government has
Sure.
got us. And so you're absolutely right as far as, some of these things not necessarily being an infringement and being just something that you should, whether you're required to do it or not, you should be willing to do, or at least open to do. But I actually blame frankly, the government and more of the ruling class and elite, because they've blurred the lines so much. Nobody knows, what's up or down. Nobody has to really, and that's, in my opinion, what kind of the broader argument against socialism and communism and such like that is that you don't have to take responsibility for your actions anymore. And not only that, you rewind back just less than a year ago before the November elections, and you had Kamala Harris and all of these progressive candidates and elected officials saying we'll never take the vaccine. They hated and distrust Donald Trump so much they kept feeding that fear and pushing that fear. So my question is, what do you expect?
Yeah.
What do you expect? If we would have had a society and a government that respects people to agree to disagree, had more economic freedom, had institutions that says, look, you're willing to, you are free and allowed to pursue your dreams and think out of the box, but you also have to accept the repercussions that come with that.
Sure.
I just think that a lot of this would, you would still have people agreeing to disagree, but it would be a lot less toxic, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting. In recent years, I've kind of become, allergic to the hypocrisies of the political dichotomy in this country between the right and the left, red and blue, what have you. And I'll use what you just said as an example, where you said that the progressives would say you don't have to take personal responsibility. I would say the conservatives are cut from the same cloth, just perspective is different. And it's saying you can't force responsibility on me because I'm free.
Yeah.
And so I see them very much alike. And again, my contention is that actual productive conversations in this country are not found at the extremes of that dichotomy, rather at the margins.
No, you're right.
So and unfortunately, the political atmosphere, and I saw this at the local level too this year. It seemed that at the margin, nobody wanted to take a step towards. Yep. It seemed that they were entrenched in their camps, and perhaps that's a product also of the competitiveness of being American and, wanting to win and being a team player. I get that.
Yeah.
But there is an element of that didn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I understand.
And it seemed also that the greater national politics and the dirty game that is permeated the local elections from what I could see to some degree. Got me to the point, frustrated enough that I described some groups as being Gestapo-like in their online activity. And I've got to take responsibility for that, obviously. But
no, you're absolutely right. I think one of my main additions to that is that the national toxic political atmosphere didn't just all of a sudden enter whenever municipal candidates announced they were running in 2020.
Sure.
It was literally the day the polls closed when I got elected. So,
you dealt with the firestorm from the very beginning.
Yeah, and so what you saw, frankly, is a lot of people online who spent 4 straight years frankly, either straight up calling me and other elected officials Nazis, white supremacists, people who are simply flying a flag to encourage Nazis and white supremacists to come to Ocean Springs. This was the rhetoric that was all around Facebook in Ocean Springs.
And to your credit, when that was going down, you were saying, look, it's just a safe flag. And you weren't saying that you wouldn't fly, you wouldn't fly a different flag if it was elected as a different flag.
Here's the thing: they were so dense, and they couldn't see the forest through the trees at all.
Well, they got to stick with the narrative.
Yeah, because I came out and I said very clearly, in no uncertain terms, I'm flying this flag because it is the state flag of Mississippi.
Yeah,
clearly. I don't care if you had an emoji on it. If you put this iced coffee on it, I would fly it.
Yeah.
I also stated that I think we need a new vote. I also stated that I would help get signatures for that vote, but nope. It all it became is white supremacy versus the virtuous, open-minded, liberal progressives.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that, not only did all that stuff go on, it was 4 years straight on Facebook. And so some people will say, well, I didn't call you that. Yeah, but what you did is you would like it.
The people that did.
You would like it. You may share it. You may comment on it. You may do a laughing emoji that encourage it. That all that's doing is piling on.
Yeah.
And so what happened is you had all these people who spent 4 years doing that, trying to belittle, mock, and straight up attack myself and some of the other aldermen, frankly, trying to make our life a living hell. I would wake up in the morning. I would wake up, check my phone, and be tagged in Shea Dobson is a white supremacist, blah, 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 blah. And so my question to them is, would anybody else like to have that happen for 4 years straight?
Sure.
And so, you know, I think a lot of people are taking a lot of things for granted when it comes to the local election because, you know, there were certain candidates that, without overtly saying what they were doing, they were trying to cash in on a lot of that stuff. And they were trying to insinuate a lot of stuff without saying it.
And without getting into detail, I know this is true because a couple reasons. One of the benefits of doing this podcast for the politicians is or the people running is that they all came into this room where you know sat where you sat, and when the cameras turned off, I consider those conversations to be confidential. You know, but I've told people, man, I wish I could write a book of the conversations that people have told me, just kind of behind the scenes of what's been going on. And I've had people reach out to me that let me listen to voicemails that were clearly directed at you from people from just out of anger, loads of cursing, name calling, things of that nature. And it just... I try to view things objectively, and it completely changed my opinion on things such as the Mayor C, and really a lot of things that were contentious throughout your mayorship. And I do hope, much like George Bush, I think the history books are going to be nice to the old painter George Bush here, honestly. And I do think that history is going to be kind to you as well, because I do think that what I've learned at least is the objective truth, and that you were treated quite unfairly.
Yeah, you know, and here's the thing. I mean, I wasn't perfect. I never claimed to be perfect. But what I try to always do is stand up for what I believe in, regardless if I was, you know, supported by only 10% or opposed by 10%. Yeah. So whenever I first got elected at the local level, I had spent about a year kind of, you know, saying I'm almost like I don't know if identity crisis, but like as far as just like I'm so tired of national politics, so tired of all this other, like at least let me go to the local level where, you know, we could talk about getting streets paved and not have to worry about all this
issues that shouldn't be political.
Right. Yeah, so literally before the polls even closed, or as the polls were closing, before I even took office, we were inundated with that. And so it was just very frustrating and frankly disappointing the way that you know, not that these are important issues and we should disagree, and we should disagree very passionately, but to use this kind of national political playbook of divide and conquer, and you did this, so you're a white supremacist, and we're going to keep pushing the distrust and this and that. Okay, that's
it's a reduction of issues down to an Excel logic equation. If this, then that. Yeah. With no further analysis. Yeah. You know, beyond first order principles. And to me, it's not intelligent, you know? Not at all. And quite frankly, if you have a different perspective, like you should talk about it. Like you should, you owe it to yourself, to your own courage, your own ego, to be able to voice those. But also you owe it to yourself to be, I think, on the right side of things. I mean, I've got no position that I believe in that I will die holding. I am always wanting to be on the right side of the actual argument, whatever that is. And I'm willing to hear anybody's perspective on it. And it's hard for me to understand how somebody can wake up in the morning and not take that perspective. Like they're willing to be so entrenched in an ideology or a value principle that they're willing to be just grossly incorrect. You know, and it's difficult for me to understand that. Yeah.
But I mean, last thing with the election, I mean, that was one of the most frustrating things. And like I said, I mean, all that stuff didn't start once people announced that was what frustrating is, you know, during the election, you would see people, well, you know, this election has brought out all the bad out of people. And, you know, I can't stand politics, or they would blame this candidate or that candidate for things getting ugly. And this, and I'm saying, okay, well, now you're kind of experiencing, what everybody else has seen. Yeah. You know, now that there's an election and maybe you're paying attention a little bit more to what's happening, but it didn't just start,
yeah.
you know, and so that's my thing is that, you know, when I would come out strong or say oh, well, you're being mean. It's like, oh, I'm being mean.
Right.
Oh, I'm being mean.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. The ones who tried to, you know, paint me as a Klans member.
Yeah.
And the ones who piled on and did the laughing reactions and emojis to it, they're just, you know, they're just voicing their opinion, right? Okay.
Sure.
So,
well, you know, it takes a lot to be able to transcend all that and can continue to try and, you know, operate at the level of being a mayor. And so where does that passion come from? Like why, where does that endurance come from?
As far as
just being able to go through that. I mean, what do you attribute that to?
I mean, so without sounding too, you know, hyperbolic and such, I always like to go back to like when I started getting involved and passionate about politics and interested in politics. So before 2008, I was apathetic. I couldn't care less about, you know, politics and world events and stuff like that. I was concerned with, you know, watching football and playing basketball and just, you know, living my life.
Right.
And so I always go back to, you know, why did I get into this? I didn't get into this to necessarily like climb the ladder or go to the fancy cocktail parties or, you know, make all these powerful buddies or anything like that. Like I've made a lot of good friends and, you know, I've had a lot of doors open and things like that. I've experienced a lot of really cool stuff. But that's not why I got into it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm much more comfortable. I can, you know, these fancy cocktail parties, I'll talk to the staff in the corner. You know, I feel more comfortable talking to them than, you know, the senator who has a bunch of people around him trying to, you know, get close to the real estate of power.
Yeah, sure.
I'm more comfortable at, you know, a metal show than the fancy stuff. But I think that's, you know, kind of going back and remembering, you know, what I got into it for. And, you know, also recognizing that, you know, when people, if people have an opinion about me, unless you're a very small group of people who I'm close with, because I'm very introverted, you know, most people, unless you know who you are, and frankly, unless I have you on my Snapchat group chat, maybe, you probably don't know the full me. And so, especially the folks who are so upset at me because of who they feel I am politically, 99% of them haven't even met me or had a conversation with me. Sure. I don't take it too personally because I know it's a straw man.
Yeah.
You know, even though it's frustrating, it could be, you know, it can make you mad sometimes, but I always try to remember at the end of the day, it's a straw man. These people aren't actually talking about me. They're talking about who they think I am.
It's kind of caricatures at play, really.
Yeah. I mean, the world is a stage.
Yeah.
That's what William Shakespeare said.
Well, you know, but being an introvert, I mean, it must have been, you know, just emotionally draining on you. I mean, just to kind of have to deal with that, and especially in the public sphere. I mean, an introvert that lives in the public sphere must be just, I mean, it must be terrifying every day, waking up, having to look at your phone, dreading that. I mean, even it seems.
Yeah. It was funny. I was thinking about the other day, you know, being Southern and being an introvert is a very interesting dynamic because you want to smile at everybody, but you know, at the same time, you're like, I'm just trying to be polite.
Yeah. But do you really want to like
but no, being you know, an elected official and a public figure, I guess, as an introvert is very interesting. I could see where, like, because I don't necessarily, like, if I'm out and about, I just kind of, you know, especially if I'm out, like, watching football and stuff, I'll talk to everybody, but I'm just, I kind of just do my thing. And
it probably makes you a great stoic, though. Because you can sit back and just not have to be at the front of the room and kind of listen to other people. And
well, I try to be, and I think that is actually a good, a big part of leadership is kind of being able to be that firm, stable rock, you know, when things get crazy, to not overreact or not get, you know, excited, and being able to kind of stay calm and deal with the situation. So yeah, I think being an introvert does help you with in that, but you know, it's got its pros and cons. The interesting thing about and I've heard this a lot about like other, whether it be like a performer, an actor, or somebody like an artist or anything like that who is introverted. A lot of them, and I've actually found this myself. I'm more comfortable giving a speech in front of 300 people than I am sometimes in small talk. Because
that's understandable though, because small talk is intimate.
Right.
And so there's a different degree of vulnerability, on stage. I mean, half the time on stage. So I've given some speeches to people on, say, a military base, a couple hundred people. And so the lights on the stage, sometimes it's often hard to see everybody. So the magnitude of the people that you're talking to kind of is hidden. And so that kind of helps as well. Oftentimes you don't see like the first two, 3 rows.
Yeah, I think it's part of that, but it's also there's a sense of not necessarily control, but if it's I'm the one presenting, and whether it different scenarios, whether it be like I would have breakfast with the mayor and I would take questions, and I would banter a little bit back and forth there, but it wasn't just a open-ended. I guess is what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying.
And so
that makes a lot of sense.
As an introvert, a lot of times like kind of that open-ended kind of social deep end, if you will, is what introverts kind of feel overwhelmed about.
Sure.
And so I feel like when you're on stage or addressing a crowd, it's more, okay, this is the scope that we're talking about. Yeah. This is what it is. And I'm
structure, you're the one talking. Nobody's there to kind of conflict with what you're saying. Talk for 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah. Or not necessarily like, and I could even add like debates to that. So even like if you're debating, but again, like it's not open-ended. It's more of a scope and a, like you said, maybe a structure. Maybe that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, I mean, being an introvert and, being a mayor and having this passion for politics outside of the mayorship, what are you up to?
Well, so my organization is my main focus right now.
Well, go on, Shea.
Yeah. Citizens Alliance of Mississippi. I got some other stuff I'm working on as well, but Citizens Alliance of Mississippi, CAM is my number one priority at the moment. And I'm really excited. It was kind of born out of, a lot of stuff that's been happening, not only, decades and decades of how I feel, Mississippi needs to be, have better, how can I put this? Have better communication, and we need to make sure that our voices are heard in Jackson and all of this. But so I feel like that's been going on for a while. But it's frankly over the past few years, I'm just seeing more of a need. People just being frustrated with what is going on in Jackson. I think the medical marijuana issue, Initiative 65. I had somebody ask me about that. Would you feel like did your organization launch because of 65, or did all this happen because of 65, or anything? I say 65 was really just like a exclamation mark on everything that like a lot of people felt was wrong with Jackson. Like you take everything that happened with 65 from the very beginning of us, campaigning and saying, hey, we're trying to get this, to them trying to put, putting 65A on the ballot, to, passing, trying to pass other bills to undermine it, to getting 74%, to the Supreme Court, ruling unconstitutional and throwing the entire initiative process out after not saying anything
on
for years
on other laws that had passed under the same sort of process.
And so now and now to the legislature, giving lip service to say, well, we want what the voters spoke, and it's like, well, yeah, they did. So stop trying to pass what got defeated. And so it was funny because I was actually thinking back. It's almost a blessing in disguise that they put 65A on the ballot and it was rejected so soundly, because now they can't even say, well, voters only had one. No. They had a clear shot. They had free markets and they had protectionist red tape. The legislator wanted protectionist red tape. The people wanted free markets. Yeah. And they chose that 74%. And so now they're trying to impose that red tape on us again.
Well, and the big difference that I saw between the two, 65 and 65A, is that 65A had no implementation date. 65, they would have been required to start issuing cards this month.
Yep.
So that was when when I read the 2 bills, like, okay, I'm just going to blast this out social media the entire time. You know, vote 65, not 65A, because 65A is just it's a masquerade. It's a Trojan horse, you know, if you will. And I found it rather despicable. It was, honestly. So
and it was frankly kind of insulting the way that many legislators try to frankly insult our intelligence.
Oh man, I love what you're about to say.
They've spent, I can go many directions there, but they've spent decades killing marijuana related bills, medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, other smaller, just stuff regarding CBD oil, stuff like that. It's been killed in committee for decades and decades, years and years and years. And so now many of these same politicians, once 65A got momentum, well, we want to pass a medical marijuana bill. Oh, so now you want to pass a medical marijuana bill.
Book of Matthew, you judge a tree by the fruit that it bears.
Yeah.
Okay. All this lip service doesn't mean anything. If you want to pass it, you'll pass it because they can very quickly get to a bipartisan issue and pass it.
Yeah.
Okay. When 74% of the citizens of the state want to do something, that's a political win across the aisle.
Yeah.
Make it happen. Like, you don't get a better handout like that. Like, that's a secure political win. Bipartisanship connects all the dots.
But see,
right?
here's where the rubber's really meeting the road. And this is where, frankly, I think my organization is going to frustrate a lot of the political class, is because they're used to, you're absolutely right on that, but they're used to being insulated by their base, by their donors, to support. They don't care what the majority think. They care what their donors and the small group who get them elected in their primary, a lot of times, not all the times, but sometimes, whatever they want, they're going to do. And a lot of times, I guess, the way I describe it is the general public, it's unfortunate that that there's a need for organizations like mine and other organizations who are like accountability type of organizations, because the average person doesn't have time. They're trying to live their life. They're trying to put food on the table. They're trying to, get their kids and soccer practice and to school, and, maybe go out to eat at a Mexican restaurant here and there. They don't have time to keep up with all this BS.
Or drive 3 hours up to Jackson and bug
and so,
legislators.
A lot. And so politicians know that. And so their rhetoric is designed to mask what's really going on. They'll name bills, they'll name bills a particular name in order just to get, the Patriot Act. That's national, but that's just one example.
Sure.
Oh, you're voting against this, you're not patriotic. That's the kind of insinuations. But with my organization, I think that's why it's good, because we've introduced our medical marijuana pledge program that is very simple. It just says that you won't support any type of licensing caps, and you won't support any type of minimum net worth requirements to own or operate in the industry.
Yeah, that's a big problem too.
Right. And the thing
they raise the barrier to entry, and now it just leads companies, and companies will, maybe pass off some money to lobbyists and whatnot. So
no question about it. So I feel like our pledge is extremely modest. I've been talking to a lot of folks, and I want to make sure that it's only for patients, or that it's not so open that this could happen or that could happen. And I tell them, look, we're going to disagree on some of the details, but let's at least keep the market open to everybody. And the fact that they keep throwing a lot of this, excuses at me, it's like, y'all don't want to be held accountable. They say, almost all of them say they agree with our principles and agree with, where we're coming from, but we got to wait and see what comes out of committee, or we got to, wait and see how the bills, we got to negotiate. It's like, if all of you agree with it, just hold the line. Yeah. It's that simple. Yeah. Just stand up for what you believe in. And I'm asking you for a very modest, position. Just keep the market open.
What about the representatives that represent these smaller, let's say, counties that gain income from people that are in jail for, say, nonviolent crimes that involve marijuana use? By making it legal in Mississippi, don't you run the risk of eliminating revenue that would be for those counties? And if so, don't they have maybe a monetary incentive to oppose this sort of legislation?
Yeah. that is that's certainly a possibility. You know, when that's an industrial complex, whether a military industrial complex,
or prison industrial,
prison industrial complex. I mean, that's an industrial complex, and so, yeah, I mean, there's going to be part of that. Now, how much that's weighing on their decision, you know, or any one individual's decision, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But my thing is I'm going to operate on face value. You know, if you're being pulled by that, then I'm not. It is what if I get evidence of it explicitly, I may call you out on that. Sure. But I'll give anybody the benefit of the doubt that what they're claiming their motives and intentions are really that. So, you know, I'll go into it. So I'll say, well, okay. I got to be careful about names and such, but I was talking about this issue with someone, and they talked about how they've talked to a lot of law enforcement folks throughout South Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And these law enforcement people expressed how they didn't want medical marijuana, and they were talking about all of the issues that they've had with the drug war, and all of the problems that marijuana has had on their community. And so I said, well, what exactly are you talking about? I mean, you know, I do agree that I think sometimes that marijuana activists are a little too like, oh, it's the best thing in the world. It's going to cure this disease and that disease and all this.
There's a lot of charlatans.
There's a lot of charlatans. Yeah. And I try to tell them, look, I'm on your side. I agree marijuana is not this devil's lettuce like the reefer madness of 100 years ago, but let's not get out of hand here. Yeah. You know, that people still should be able to have the option and the choice, mm-hmm. but let's not make it out to be something it's not. But so with that being said, I poked a little bit more, and I said, well, tell me about some of the issues. And well, you know, gangs and this and this and that. Not a single one of the problems that they cited was about the marijuana plant itself and the effects it has. It was all about crime and all of the other stuff related to the drug war. You know, and so that's what I'm trying to get people to understand. They say, well, marijuana is bad. There's gangs and people. Well, yeah,
that's correlation at best. It's certainly not causation. Right. And oftentimes gangs that are organized for reasons outside of the drug use. The drug becomes the revenue stream for them. Mm-hmm. So because it's a black market. So so how do you eliminate a black market? By making it legal and tradable.
Right.
So then actually that would make the case that the gangs would have less of an opportunity to grow, to maintain, because the black market would no longer be viable.
Yeah, absolutely. Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, LEAP. It's an organization, really good. I'm not sure of their status now. I haven't heard much of them in a while, but they talked about how they said, well, let's talk about when we got legalized alcohol, when we decided alcohol prohibition wasn't working. Why did we do that? Did we do it because we wanted to encourage kids to get drunk before school? No. Well, we did it because obviously we wanted to encourage and we wanted more drunk drivers on the road, right? No, we didn't do it because any of those. The reason we got rid of alcohol prohibition is because prohibition doesn't work. It's as simple as that. During prohibition, you have the mafia, you have organized crime controlling it. Outside of prohibition, you have Anheuser-Busch. You know, these companies. So when you make it illegal like that, all you're doing is, like Milton Friedman said, when you look at the drug war from a purely economic standpoint, it's the job of the government to protect the black market for the criminals, because they're keeping honest companies from producing this product and not having to be in a market where the most violent are the ones that rise to the top.
Gotcha.
And LEAP and that other, one of the speeches they were talking about, they said, what happens when a big drug cartel, like the leader of a drug cartel or something, dies? He gets shot, dies. Well, obviously what they do is with all other businesses, and then there's like a power vacuum. They go to court, right? All of the drug dealers, all of the lower men come in and present their case to the judge. They say, well, I've been moving this much weight and all this, so I deserve, this much. And so the judge, what he does is he makes a ruling and gives, the proper amount of the drug trade to this. That doesn't happen. That happens in
you're good. Sorry.
That happens in legal industries and legal products. But because of the government making it illegal, now the vacuum is determined by violence and shootouts in the street.
That's right.
So but when it comes to medical marijuana, I say, look, let's at least agree to get medicine to sick people. You know, we can debate a lot of this stuff, and I'm not saying we need to legalize every single drug and in the sense of just letting it open and selling it to, in 7-Eleven or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, like we need to have an honest conversation about, does the drug war work, number one, and number two, let's at least recognize and give people the option of medicating in a way that they see fit.
Sure. And that makes a lot of sense. I do think that marijuana use by, let's say, the older population actually makes real sense for the state as well. And I think it can actually save money. There was some great research out of Temple University. I think Catherine McClendon, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, they evaluated older citizens that were exiting the workforce, right? And oftentimes due to pain, and those that were still in the workforce did not work as many hours because of pain. And yet they saw that in states where medical and even recreational marijuana was allowed, they saw that those populations were staying in the workforce longer. And if they're staying in the workforce longer, then they're able to earn more of an income. And on average, they were working more hours. And I find that really interesting. Oh, one more. First of all, the working, it was a 13% of the population of, say, 60 and older were actually working more hours. And there was a 21% decline in self-reported, forget how they framed it, self-reported issues of pain, we'll say. And so that tells me that it's the same thing as like getting a headache. You go to CVS, you get Tylenol, you're good to go. You don't have to sit and deal with the opportunity cost of sitting in a waiting room or what have you. You can just identify, medicate, so on and so forth. So I look at that as, well, I mean, you're increasing the purchasing power of people because they're able to earn more money. Earn more money allows them to spend more money. So the state recoups on say the goods that they buy. They're able to be more self-sustaining, which reduces the sort of welfare burden on the state as well. And this is just from simply what could be happening starting this month. Yeah. With Initiative 65. So I think obviously there's health benefits, but I mean the health benefits are just the sort of, that's what's topical, right? That's what you can see. But there are downstream effects. Don't want to say trickle down economics, but rather maybe trickle up. But the point is that somebody that's able to heal themselves. Vacuum. Yeah, exactly. There's more than just like, hey, I feel good. There's just more capability, and I think you can help a lot of people. There's people that are close to me that have neurological issues, like say Parkinson's, and without marijuana, can't eat a bowl of cereal or soup, but with marijuana they can. And unfortunately, they've decided that their lifestyle is better if they have marijuana, so they take the risk of buying marijuana. Right. And so of course there's a risk that this person who I care about very much might end up getting caught by the police. But from where I see it, I mean, if I was them, I'd probably do the same thing. Right. You know,
and it's that type of stuff that I feel like creates distrust in government. Yeah. The drug war, people want to talk about, oh, this is racist and that racist. The drug war was actually racist when it started, and regardless of how or why it started, as far as the enforcement, it's hit minority communities very, very hard. And that the best way to describe it is, all the statistics you look at shows white and black communities or wealthy or poor or whatever it is, they use drugs basically at the same rate. But, these wealthy communities, it's a lot easier to hide and not be out in the open, where, in the inner cities or poor neighborhoods, it's they're the ones having to take the risk to sell it, or they're the ones, who it's out more on the open. And so it impacts certain communities more, regardless of what the intent was.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to bring up, is that you don't have to understand that it's a problem and that it disproportionately affects black communities and people of color. You don't have to really get down to like, well, was it a racist thing? It could just be honest naive policy decisions, right, by people at the time that didn't have the right science. I mean, the mid 20th century did not have the socioeconomic studies that we have today, right? A lot of it was just kind of guess. We think it'll work. Misinformed first order principles, but clearly, it's affected those communities of people of color disproportionately. And to that end, I think that it's worth reconciling, at least by doing something like passing something as simple as medical marijuana.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And, that goes back to, just letting people own their lives, let people own their own health. Not imposing. I just get frustrated at just the sheer hypocrisy. If you're going to take a stance that, you as the government or the government should have a say about what type of medicine you have, and I remember. When being up in Jackson and listening to them debate some of those other bills, and they were, debating, well, you should only be able to smoke it if you have this condition, and only in this condition. It's like, weren't you the ones who spent 8 years talking about get government out of healthcare? So do you want to? It's for some reason they think. If Barack Obama is the one pushing it and it's from the national level, that that's offensive, having these bureaucrats dictator. That was the rhetoric, and I agree with them 100%. But for some reason, when it's taking place in Jackson by Republicans and they're dealing with marijuana, all of a sudden that it's justified. But it's the exact same principle. I agree. So I just get frustrated with the hypocrisy. Yeah, and again, I see more benefits for the state. I personally think that in a lot of ways, Mississippi's behind on some things, we'll say, right? We'll just leave it there. That's fair. Yeah. But, again, like when we talked about East Ocean Springs during the election and development, and everyone wants like an influence store like World Market and whatnot. But the problem is that the Mississippi laws kind of make it difficult for those companies to come in. So where we could have more affluent businesses, we're held off by organizations like the ABC that just because it's coming into the state, it's 27.5% tax, boom, on it immediately. And plus they have to handle all of the logistics lines, and they account for $200 million roughly a year. I've seen as high as $300 million, but you can look at a state like, say, Colorado, where they implemented their medical marijuana program, 4 or 5 years ago, right? And Colorado? Yeah. So their revenue from marijuana, I think, started in the realm of 40 million. Last year was 400 million. So I look at that and I say, okay, well, here's a great opportunity where the passing of Initiative 65 gives a greater economic modality for the state. Yeah. Insofar as with, let's just say, if it's $400 million that this can bring into the state, better healthcare, obviously, but we could get rid of the ABC, allow these more affluent companies to come in and proliferate more affluent businesses that might attract more higher earning people to the state as well. Yeah. I see that as a net gain also. And of course, it costs $100 million a year to run the ABC. Mm-hmm. So we eliminate that cost as well. Yeah. Yeah. ABC is a racket. Yeah. It's very cartel-like, right? I mean, if you want to sell in my territory, you got to come through me, and I'm going to attach a 27.5% tax. That's straight out of a movie, man. So I actually testified at a committee. I can't remember which committee it was. Hank Zuber was the chairman, I believe. Okay. I've been trying to get him on. Yeah, you should. He's good. But a couple years ago, and it was about alcohol laws, and most of who was in there to oppose the loosening of the laws were existing liquor companies, or and so. Well, if you all these chains and basically they were arguing, well, we're going to have competition. It's like, it's not these representatives and senators' job to legislate and regulate your competition out the market. It's your job to provide better customer service, or better prices, or better quality, or a combination of all of it, to make people choose your business over the other. It's really as simple as that. It's that simple. I do think that looking out for those businesses, though,
according to Mississippi law, you can only have one liquor license in the state. So I would like to see that go away as well, because you don't have the ability for a small business to franchise, and it even affects large companies. Winn-Dixie, the liquor store here in Ocean Springs is the only Winn-Dixie liquor store in the state, and it was in Biloxi until that one closed out. I think on Pass Road, right? If I'm not mistaken, I could have that wrong. But yeah, I mean, so I do see if that's what they're talking about, like, hey, we can't compete with a larger company because we're just a small business. Then okay, great. I hear you. You can now franchise,
And it's exactly that type of, and see, that's what I remember talking to folks about it so much and saying it was so, I don't know if ironic the right word, or so just poetic justice maybe, that, when 65 passed before they ruled it unconstitutional.
It was amazing that it passed.
Yeah, it was. And so alcohol would have been, regarding just the medical portion of it, alcohol was in a lot of ways very, very restrictive, and had a lot of, and it's always like, we have this open medical marijuana market, where, businessmen can go into business without having to ask Mother May out of Jackson, and then you still got these protectionist policies on alcohol. It's just very ironic that it kind of jumped like that. But yeah, and you're exactly right. That's and I remember discussing that up there at the hearing, and talking about how Ocean Springs, we want to get Publix, we want to get Trader Joe's, we want to get all these different companies with these very cool, unique business model, but because of these alcohol laws, it keeps them away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I remember in that hearing also, it was so frustrating, and I almost had to, this goes to show why, and also I'll tell, not only younger people, just everybody in general, you got to get involved with politics, because the people who you send often don't, they're out of touch, and they don't know your values. So in that hearing, they were talking about, well, if the alcohol laws are loosened and the children see liquor or wine or whatever it is in the grocery store, or it's going to be harder, or this and that. And I'm like,
watch the music videos your kids watch.
Yeah.
Okay. They're very much aware there's alcohol.
Well, yeah. And not only that, but it was so funny. And I almost, I had to keep myself from being too sarcastic or not even laugh. But in the hearing, I said, look, I understand you want to protect your children. You want to make sure they're not exposed to, whatever it is that you don't approve of. You should have that right. I said, but let me just put it this way. I'm from the Gulf Coast. I've been going to Mardi Gras since I was a little bitty.
Right.
Yeah. Now, obviously, I'm from Ocean Springs, and Ocean Springs is in New Orleans.
It's still not an alcohol-free zone.
It's still not an alcohol-free zone, and I have family in Louisiana. I've been to the, Mardi Gras parades over there. Yeah. We've gone to, and so that's what I told him. I'm like, look, I've been to Mardi Gras. I'm from the coast. And I remember when I was younger walking through casinos to go to the restaurants.
Yeah.
They had some of them would put like a little thing on you or something, you have to stay with your parents and walk through the floor and all that.
And then you eat and get dropped off at Kids Quest and your kids go gamble.
Absolutely.
Come on now.
And I brought that up too. And I said, I'm not an alcoholic. I may have an annual gambling budget of $50.
Yeah.
So your fears are unfounded. They really are.
Yeah. I think they fail the, a practical thought experiment, certainly. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the common thing is you go back to the kids. Like, first of all, if you have this marijuana bill and it starts out as medical marijuana, I mean, it's not going to open the floodgates to marijuana everywhere. And even if it's recreational, it's not going to be without regulation. And I'm sure the legislators are going to curb the demand by taxing it. Price indicates scarcity. So I definitely think that there's fear mongering, we'll say.
Yeah,
But when I hear that also, I think, okay, well, you can't have one without the other. Okay, so your fear is the children, maybe the future of your kids. And I say, well, the future of your kids are brighter because of this potential revenue stream. What if the revenue stream brings in money to where all kids that have a C average can be subsidized to go to a state college? That's a net gain for the state.
Right.
I mean, you can look at all sorts of problem statistics, crime, poverty, all these things are all heavily affected by an increase in the education base of that population. So it stands to reason that if we focus on that and finding ways to make that more affordable and attainable for people in the state, then those problems will slowly recede as well, hopefully. Now, I also want to say that alcohol and marijuana, back to Colorado, their alcohol sales didn't really plummet. In fact, they account for about $50 million a year in revenue, despite having a boon in, say, the craft market, which is largely driven by the people going there for the marijuana. So that's unaffected as well. But the point is that $50 million last year, $400 million. Okay, 8 times. You have the opportunity potentially, if the same effect happened here, you would have 8 times the annual revenue that the state brings in for alcohol to do what with? Whatever you want.
Right.
Pay raises, for like teachers, for first responders, law enforcement, all these things. I mean, I don't see a downside.
There's not.
I don't.
Yeah. And, that goes back to, it's definitely all upsides. I mean, well, and I say all upsides, again, marijuana is not a plant that's gonna, cure every disease or anything like that. But you could even, if we take this conversation and do it back to when they were trying to discuss whether alcohol should be legal or not.
Yeah, we knew the same things about each substance, and they both emerged overnight. Which one would be legal?
Right, and not only that, but it's not about marijuana being this great thing or necessarily this bad thing. It's about just economics and understanding that when there's supply or when there's demand, there's going to be supply. And regardless of how much you don't like it, pushing it into a black market is
always the wrong thing.
Always the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Now go out, preach against it. Go wave signs on Highway 90 about how people need to stop smoking it.
Advocate it. Sure.
Go knock on doors if that's your prerogative, but don't use government to force people to stop or do your bidding.
Yeah, the simple fact is you can't legislate ethics.
No.
If there's an ethical principle about it, then that should be self-evident. And if it's not, then that's where advocacy comes in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah. You have a right to preach against something or talk about something, but not use other agents to enforce your beliefs.
Yeah, for sure. So where are the allies for this organization? Aside from just people like you and me who just see and again, it not just a center because, as you said, it's not centered purely on the medical marijuana, but perhaps as a catalyst initiative, 65, given that 74% of voters voted in. Are there other organizations that are kind of on the side of this trying to find momentum as well? And there's a lot of, there's other organizations out there fighting the good fight and other individuals just within their scope. I think everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses and, things that they're good at and obviously different locations. I'm here on the coast, different things. But so there's other organizations out there who are doing it. The Mississippi Medical Marijuana Association is really good. The We Are 74 group, that's very grassroots. They have a lot going on. It's people of all different perspectives, whether, conservative, liberal. And so that's very just grassroots and folks who are just, not necessarily politically, the most politically involved or connected, I should say, but just folks who are passionate. And so, and then the, association is, really understands the business side of it and works with a lot of, different companies and such. And so my organization, is good at just, political organizational and communications and advocacy and stuff like that. So everybody has their, like I said, their strengths and weaknesses, and obviously other, elected officials or, influencers, if you will, that support it. So the way I like to describe it is just more of a kind of a loose network that, I've connected with and worked with folks on this issue who will disagree on other stuff down the road, but I think it's important to when you can find something that you can agree with, but work towards that. Yeah. And so that's what I've been trying to do. I'm trying to think. There was a lot of different groups. The Mississippi Minority, the Mississippi, what is it?
Mississippi Minority Cannabis Association.
Okay.
I hope I'm getting that right. They did a presentation at one of the Senate hearings I was at. Really, really good. I've been talking to them. They shared my op-ed I did. They really understand the need to open the market, and what they talked about is, they represent a lot of, Black-owned businesses, and, they talked about how whenever you have all this regulation, like I believe it was in Oklahoma, or not Oklahoma, what was it? Arkansas, that it forced them, it regulated them out of the business. And so they talked about the need to, again, with our pledge, not have any minimum net worth requirements, not having licensing caps, and just in general, lowering how hard it is to get into the business. That only helps everybody.
Right.
So, whether you're, a Black-owned business who may not have a lot of generational wealth, or you're a wealthy businessman who just wants to throw around a bunch of money, you should be able to have access to the market.
Yeah, for sure. And I've run into a couple of people that I know that have businesses on the Gulf Coast, and they've found that trying to get into their perspective or their respective industries, if you will, down on the coast, there's a barrier to entry that's not just economic, but knowledge based, and so they're trying to get into it, and it's as if there's kind of old money gatekeepers in there.
Oh yeah. The gatekeepers.
Yeah. And so kind of being restrictive to people. And I think a state like Mississippi needs to be hyper aware of those sorts of things and really take a step back and look at where those things might be, because, if you are a true capitalist, then you want more people to have access to the market. Yeah. That's just what you want. It's just better for business that way. Yeah. Because there's more experiments of opportunity and for innovation. So
I'm an unapologetic capitalist.
Yeah, there you go.
I will not apologize for supporting capitalism.
Are you a reader of Ayn Rand?
No, I mean, I've obviously read her stuff and
aware of it,
studied it, but I will say I think she's misunderstood a little bit.
I do too, yeah.
But she makes some good points on certain specifics.
Within her.
I don't know if I buy
philosophy.
I don't know if I buy everything she's selling.
Right. I really like the idea that selfishness is a moral good, and that it ensures that you're not to be taken not unwavering selfishness, but making sure that you're taken care of ahead of somebody else, because it's really the problem that we talked about at the beginning is that you want freedom, but not the responsibility. Right. And so by selfishness, you're taking the responsibility to make sure that you're taken care of so that you're not a burden on somebody else. I think that's the moral principle there that lies therein. Of course, it doesn't go down easy. It takes a lot of discussion.
I agree. Yeah, it takes a lot to kind of unwrap it. And it kind of takes the idea of altruism, and I don't know if standing on its head is the right way to put it, but I
think so. It's the way she describes it, it's the opposite end.
The way that I've kind of looked at it, and I don't know if this exactly would be the interpretation that she would agree with, but the way that at least what I personally have taken out of it is that, I'm going to support and have value judgments based on my own values and perception, and yes, that may be influenced or shaped maybe by those who I willingly let around me and such, but. But I'm going to support something or not support something or anything like this type of stuff because it's what I feel is my morals to support, not because society is forcing that.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I think that's and you really have to talk through that because it gets a little clumsy.
Oh yeah.
But I guess the way I would kind of look at it is I want to help people. Like I want to give to a charity because my values says that the money that I'm giving is better spent by the money that I have that is my right to do with. I'm willing to give it because my values and my judgment says that it's better for them to have this particular money to fulfill their mission.
Sure.
And I'm doing it because I feel that that's my virtues, not because of I'm releasing my autonomy to the collective. And so that's how I kind of take it out of it.
Yeah, I'll give my kind of view on that in terms of charity. Like so let's say that you give to a charity and you decide to give to this charity, right? Time, money, resources, whatever the case may be, right? You feel good about it, right? Could we call that pleasure then? I got pleasure from doing that. Okay, so then if that's the case, then we can take a hedonistic perspective in that it's selfish of you to seek that pleasure, but it is charity.
Yeah.
So that would be within the philosophical realm of Ayn Rand, is that it's a moral good because for you, or for one that believes that they get pleasure from helping others, that's a moral good. And so they're chasing that, to seek that pleasure as a hedonist.
Yeah.
But
it's very interesting. And that's why I love philosophy, because it's a lot of ways to,
it's thoughts about thoughts, man.
Yeah. It's thoughts about thoughts. It's a way of looking at something and kind of, turning it on its head and tackling issues and kind of getting to an area from numerous different ways.
Yeah.
And so I really like it. And kind of the bookend on that, what I've always said just in general, and not necessarily revealing, specific to Ayn Rand or anything like that, but I always tell people, who are very kind of just, what's the word? Just very bleeding hearts, caring about people and stuff. I always tell them, look, it's good and I'm happy, and that's very admirable that you're somebody who really cares about others, who wants to, even not look after yourself and martyr yourself in a way to help others. That's great, but at the end of the day, if you can't stand on your own 2 feet and take care of yourself, then you're no good to others either. You can't help others. And so
you become a burden.
You need, exactly. Don't become a burden trying to help others.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense. Okay. So what's next for the organization? What does the organization need? What are the next movements here?
Best thing you could do right now is to go to teamcam.org/citizen and sign that pledge. That's the main thing we're doing right now because, like I said, they're talking about this medical marijuana bill. They have, leadership pushing on them to say what they want to do. Lobbyists from a lot of different places.
Sure. Yeah.
Telling them what they want. Like I said, their base, their donors, or whoever it is, telling them what they want. And so what I keep telling people is they say, well, this 74% people spoke for it, and they would be a fool to go against it. Yes, but we have to make sure that they understand our voices are, number one, we're united and we're crystal clear about our intent and what we're going to stand and not stand for. And number two, and more importantly, that we're going to remember their votes, and we're going to remember how they stand on this issue. And that's going to come into play come election time.
Sure.
So, you got to sign the pledge and you got to just go to teamcam.org. You can look at our website there. But so we're really focusing on this right now. We're expecting a special session. I'm hearing conflicting things. There might not be a special session. Mm-hmm. So obviously we're working on that. Once it becomes clear that there's either not going to be a special session or we get past it, we're going to be putting together an accountability scorecard. We're going to look at bills, some of the bills that we're either anticipating or had already been discussed or introduced, and kind of grade those and say, okay, if you vote for this, you get a thumbs up, or vote for that, you're going to get a thumbs down. Mm-hmm. Grade everybody based on that. And
that's thumbs up, thumbs down is the perspective, based on their political stand?
Based on their vote on particular bills. And so we'll identify, and obviously with people can agree to disagree, but we're going to identify bills that we feel is important. We're not going to score every single vote.
Sure.
But the big significant bills that we feel is they need to take a hard stance on or whatever. And a lot of this, it's kind of fluid. I got to see what comes out, and I got to talk to people, and the devil's in the details. But once we identify those bills as this one's good, this one's bad. We'll put all that out accordingly.
Gotcha. And I do want to underscore this point is that it's not an organization that's purely about medicinal marijuana. It just seems to be the most obvious thing right now. I mean, again, 74% of people voted for this, and they found a way to get rid of it. And
right.
Also identifying their own hypocrisy in the process, know. So it seems like a great launching point as well.
Yeah, and we're really not thinking too much in those terms. For us, it's just again, where people feel like they don't have a voice in their government. They're just frustrated about what's going on in Jackson. I'm going to make sure that people know crystal clear about, what's happening in Jackson. I mean, I'm going to be in there following what's happening in committee. I want to make it the swamp, they talk about in DC. There's a swamp in Jackson, but I want people to really understand, what that means. The swamp's real muddy. It's you can't see in the water. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of, I'm glad the swamp, they talk about like the swamp, because that's what happens when you get into these committees. There's 174, I believe, senators and representatives in Jackson. It's hard to know the sausage, you don't want to know how the sausage and legislation's made. I mean, nobody knows what deals for sure are being made, or this is being included in this bill because of this or that or that. Well, they're not going to be operating in the shadows anymore.
Right.
That's what they need to understand. The days of operating in the shadows and being able to go to Jackson away from your constituents and be in the Capitol and do all these deals and preaching about how bad marijuana is while you go in Jackson and get drunk on the taxpayer's dime.
Right.
I'm exposing it all. All that's over with.
Good.
I've seen, being mayor, I've seen corruption from Jackson. Mm-hmm. And
again, I've heard some stories, so just even along the coast, and it's not like any governmental body is immune to that. I mean, Moss Point went through that with their mayor, so and that's just down the road from us, So, but yeah, look, Shea, I had a great time talking to you, man. Yeah, and you're welcome anytime. I wish you the best of luck in this organization. How can people get in touch now? Now you mentioned teamcam.org, mm-hmm. right? How can people get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Follow me on all social media. I think at Shea Dobson is Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I've gotten lucky and got my name.
There you go.
But yeah,
just got to work on that blue check mark now.
Yeah, I know. It's impossible. I've tried to get verified, but I don't know what the deal is. But so at Shea Dobson on all of those. Go to Citizens Alliance website or our social medias as well. Citizens of MS on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, I believe. I hope I'm not bad. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. And
either way, I'll put it on the website. We'll get it all tagged, all that good stuff.
Good deal.
So.
Yeah, and or you can email me at shay@teamcam.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, Shea, good luck to you. Thanks for stopping by. Had a blast.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. We'll see you.